Hello everyone, welcome to Self-Knowledge. Today we are having lecture number 22 of this course of 50 lectures that we are broadcasting through this page every Sunday. Today we are going to talk about an extremely important topic. We are going to talk about meditation. And as we already know, this course seeks for us to learn the tools that will allow us to awaken our consciousness, to get to know ourselves. And for this purpose, meditation is a fundamental tool. Through meditation, we can come to understand and resolve the different negative aspects that mark our psychology, to resolve traumas, phobias, and each of our wrong ways of being, to achieve radical changes within us. Therefore, today we're going to see in detail what meditation is and what is it for. We will see what are the different types of meditation that exist and which of these are the ones that really are going to lead us to achieve a radical change in ourselves. In addition, we will see today the steps to achieve a correct meditation. Let me check something over here. Let me see if everything is okay with the broadcast so we can start. Allow me just a second. Okay, I think everything is going okay. If you have any question, you can write it there in the chat and we will be solving any question you have regarding this topic or regarding the self-knowledge course that we are broadcasting every Sunday. So, let's start. Meditation. To talk about this topic, we must start from the fact that in life, the only important thing is radical, total, and definitive change. The rest, frankly, doesn't have the slightest importance. But it turns out that we usually try to solve our problems by making external changes, and we don't understand why, no matter how hard we try to make changes outside, to change jobs, to change partners, to change places, countries, etc., problems like haunt us and come back again. And this is because we don't understand that it doesn't matter how many external changes we make if the real causes of our problems lies within us, in our wrong ways of being that constantly attracts the different circumstances of our life. We are going to be living the same situations once and again. Therefore, we can understand that if we sincerely want a real change in our life, we must start to learn to meditate. Since he who doesn't know how to meditate, the superficial, will never be able to dissolve the ego, which is the cause of all our problems. It always be like a powerless log in the raging sea of life. We will continue dancing to the music that everyone plays us, reacting with anger in violent situations, reacting weakly, with sadness and despair to adverse situations, with greed, with lust, with laziness, depending on the circumstance, without achieving self-control, control over ourselves. That is why we must know to be serious and to put aside so many forms of meditation that doesn't lead us to generate real changes in ourselves. Those inconsequential, superficial, and vain meditations of those that we find everywhere, and we need to focus on really changing. So let's start by explaining what is meditation. Meditation is the mean to achieve through the inner silence to unite ourselves to that divine part in us, to achieve wisdom. Meditation, as you can see here, is the daily bread of the wise, as it is from meditation that we are going to obtain the wisdom about ourselves and about the entire universe. In deep meditation, we manage to reach the causes of each one of our fears, of our conditioning, and of our wrong ways of being, to definitely eradicate them from us and to rescue wisdom. That is, the consciousness that is trapped in our ego. In each detail of our ego, it is trapped a portion of our consciousness. And through meditation, we are going to know to get to the cause of our ego and to eradicate it completely. So the meditation that is going to really be useful to us is a meditation that leads us to generate changes in ourselves, that lead us to transform ourselves. And we must know that there are several types of meditation, and this is important to analyze. There are, let me check something. There are contemplative meditations. These abound everywhere, with all kinds of methods and forms to meditate. But they are inconsequential meditations that only lead us to achieve a pleasant state of relaxation, listening to a sound, concentrating on something, and so on. And when we come out of these types of meditations, of the contemplative meditations, we feel undoubtedly well and relaxed. But since it has not led us to any inner change, as it has not led us to understand and eliminate the errors within ourselves, as soon as we are faced with any adverse situation that makes emerge the ego, we lose the state of relaxation that we have achieved with that meditation. So these types of meditations that don't lead us to generate changes are actually a waste of time. And if we really yearn an inner breakthrough, we must put aside these kinds of meditation and start being serious. On the other hand, there are the transcendental meditations, which are meditations that seek a change in the individual. In this course, we will learn two of these meditations. Today, we will learn the steps to achieve a transcendental meditation that is known as the reflective meditation. That is the one that we are going to learn today. And this meditation will lead us to deepen into our psychology and generate radical changes within us. And we will see in another lecture, actually in lecture number 36, we are going to see another transcendental meditation that is called the Cone's meditation, which is a wonderful meditation practice that will allow us to access to the sixth and the seventh dimension of nature and directly experience the great reality, the union for a few minutes with our own inner being. But as I said, today we are going to focus on the reflective meditation, which is very important. This meditation will lead us to search in ourselves for the causes of our reactions, for the causes of our pain, our suffering, our wrong attitudes, etc. So by looking for them and eliminating them from us, we are going to rescue the essence, the trap virtue that is hidden inside this that we are going to find in this meditation. And with each meditation, we will have achieved a change within us. And when we face the different situations that previously brought out each of our negative ways of being, having eliminated them in our reflective meditations, we will act in the different situations consciously. So from each meditation, we are going to be a different person, a better person. We are going to experience changes within ourselves with each meditation. So, what will be the raw material for the reflective meditation? Well, each of the events situations and circumstances that we have experienced, both pleasant and unpleasant, and the more intense and the stronger they have been, the better. Since we will see that everything that happened to us has the purpose of showing us all those eyes, that is how we call our ego, all the details of our ego, those eyes or selves that would otherwise remain hidden inside us if it wasn't because of that situation that happens to us. And there we can study ourselves from every situation that we have lived. We can study our own psychology to discover all those different eyes that inhabit within us. So we are going to reflect on the eyes that have been expressed in pleasant situations, but especially in the unpleasant ones, like the things that we have lived where the hatred or the anger or the revenge or the pain, the suffering, the self-consideration, the jealousy, the suicidal wishes, the fear, etc., have arrived within us. And especially we are going to study all those lived scenes where our lustful eyes have manifested themselves within us, so that we can achieve that much needed chastity. So we can go out to or go into our suprasexual practice without spilling our sexual energy. So that is very important to achieve chastity, and for that, practicing the reflective meditation will be very useful. We usually tend to protest against the unpleasant events that happen to us. And this is because we don't know how to see the usefulness of those events. And we must learn to get from this, through meditation, the useful elements for our own inner growth. So when we take the liking to meditation, when we constantly extract the wisdom from each situation that is presented to us daily, then we begin to take like a liking to the taste of work, being working on ourselves. Then we will begin to need to take those magical moments in the day to reflect, to psychologically die, and to do our different practices. That is a taste of work. And we are going to lose our liking for that taste of life, which is that way we commonly live life. Identified, reacting, fascinating us with everything without delving into anything, without delving into ourselves. And we are going to stop identifying with this life that is nothing more than a wheel that turns mechanically, with all its pleasant and unpleasant circumstances always recurring. We know that we cannot stop that wheel. All situations in life will continue to be processed mechanically. But as we study, as we understand and eliminate, which is important, from our interior, the details that make up each of our psychological defects, our attitude towards the different events of our life will change. Then the different circumstances of life will not affect us as they used to. When one no longer will vibrate with those situations, we will no longer vibrate with those places or those people, and then we begin to experience how a real and a positive change is going to take place within ourselves, and is going to be reflected in our life. The external things are going to start changing as we change within ourselves. So you know that quote that says, "As within, so without." Exactly. So if we change within, things will change in the outside. So let's see what are these steps for reflective meditation. Well, the first step is to find a quiet place. It is important that we find that special place where we can be, in silence, that we can be without being disturbed. That is the first step. And the second step would be to harmonize that environment. And for that, we are going to remove all the negative from the place where we are going to make the practice in with the song of the Bellylin. We learned that conjuration, the Bellylin, in the lecture number 7. If you haven't learned that conjuration, you can look for the lecture number 7 here in the video section of this page. And once we have cleaned the environment from all the negative energies with the conjuration of the Bellylin, we are going to close that place so that these negative energies cannot re-enter. And to do that, we are going to make the magic circle of protection that we also saw in lecture number 7. Once we have this place harmonized and closed, we are going to plead for assistance to that upper part of our consciousness, that is our inner being, that is our inner God, let's say. We are going to ask him to guide us in this practice, to allow us to observe and understand the different eyes that we are going to work with, and to assist us in eliminating from ourselves each one of them to get to free our consciousness. And then we are going to make a relaxation process, so our body gets into harmony too. And we will relax our emotions first, and then we are going to relax our mind, and then we are going to relax our physical body. And to relax our emotions, we are going to breathe deeply for a few minutes, inhaling slowly and long through the nose, and exhaling through our mouth. That way, by inhaling and exhaling, we are going to start feeling how all the stress, how all these, emotions just calm down. So that is the first step. And then we are going to relax our mind. And for this, we are going to concentrate for, a minute or two on all the sounds that are around without identifying with them. We are going to pay attention to a sound, and then we are going to let it go. We are going to listen to another sound, and we are going to let it go. And each time we are going to look for more distant sounds, and we let them go. And we will experience how the mind becomes silent when we just try to listen to all the sounds that are surrounding us. The mind just be quiet. Then we are going to relax our physical body, and for that we are going to imagine a bright light that enters, for example, from the big toe of our right foot, and we can imagine how this light is relaxing part by part of our entire body, while we mentally order each part of the body to relax, to calm down, to let go. And we can review our whole body, 3 times until we experience a good relaxation. And once we have our emotions, our mind, and our whole body in the state of harmony and concentration, we are going to enter into reflective meditation. And for this, we are going to be reconstructing in our mind one scene of our life in which we are going to meditate. Let it be a scene of anger, of violence, of lust, of jealousy, of pride, of fear, something that we have lived. Whatever the scene where in which that way of being that we want to eradicate from us manifested. And We want to come to understand and eliminate, for example, the anger defect, or if we want to eliminate a phobia, or we want to eliminate from us a trauma, then we are going to bring this situation to our mind, and we are going to like reconstruct all the experience. We are going to try to remember this scene as closely as possible. That is the first thing. We are going to bring the scene as closely as possible. We are going to try to see everything like in detail, everything that happened in that situation. And then we are going to observe in that scene everything that was manifesting in us. What was in our mind? We are going to observe our thoughts. We are going to see what was manifesting there in our emotions. So what were we feeling in that situation? We are going to observe that in detail. We are going to also observe each of the desires we felt, and as well as the reactions we had in our body, like each word we said, and the internal causes that moved each of them. Everything we did, everything we said, we are going to observe all that. And we will observe also what we imagined in that situation. We are going to observe everything in detail. And, the important thing when doing this exercise is to divide ourselves into the observer and the observed. And that is important. We are not going to identify ourselves with the scene. No, we are going to see it like a movie. Because if we get to identify with the situation, we are going to start feeding that negative way of being again. So if we are starting in anger situation, a violent situation in which we react with anger, then if we get identified with the situation that we are remembering, we are going to start feeling the angerness again, and we are going to start like arguing again and having the same desires again. So that is not the purpose of the meditation. The purpose of this meditation is that we get to resolve that. And to get to do that, we need to divide ourselves. We are going to see like the scene, like if it is a movie, and we are outside. We are the observer, and what we are looking at is the observed. We are going to see the different eyes that manifested in that situation, in that scene. What I was thinking, I'm going to see it like something that is outside of me. What I was feeling, how I react, I'm going to divide myself into the observer and the observed. And we are going to be the observer because we are the consciousness that is seeing the event, like if it is a movie, as I said. And the observed are going to be the different eyes that was manifesting in the scene. So when we remember the scene again, yes, some emotions, some sensations and thoughts will be activated in us. And that is where we need to put an effort to don't identify ourselves with this, because doing so will lose this. If we do so, we are going to lose the state of meditation. And when we are there observing all the details of the ego that were manifesting in us, and we are going to judge them. We are going to judge ourselves ruthlessly without justifying ourselves. That is important. Without omitting anything, with the sincere desire to discover the ego in us and eliminate it. So it is important when doing this exercise not to fall in the common error of blaming others for the different reactions that we had. Since what happened in us happens because we have the I alive within us. So the important thing here is to observe in us all the eyes that have manifested to understand that they are parts of our ego, that they are our conditioning. And if we just blame others, for example, okay, I acted with anger, I hit the person, but he was the culprit because he did that. That is not useful because it is not real. Actually, the only cause for me to act with anger is because I have an angry self. If I work on my angry self, if I eliminate from me my angriness, anybody can do anything, can say whatever, and I'm not going to react violently because I have worked this and eliminate that from my interior. So I cannot blame others for my reactions. I need to judge myself progressively. I need to judge everything that I did, finding the I or the detail of the ego, of my ego, that made me act that way, that made me think that way, that made me feel that way, and so on. And to eliminate all the details that we are going to be finding in this reflective meditation, we are going to implore to that a force of love of our consciousness, which is our Divine Mother, with the following request. For example, we can say, for every detail that we find, we can say, Divine Mother, eliminate this defect for me. And we are going to do this for each of the eyes that we discover and that we understand. So if I understand that there in this scene that I'm working on, the impatience brought, and I can see, okay, yeah, I was acting impatient. I found my impatient eye manifesting there. I'm going to judge that. I'm going to see how that eye is letting me is leading me to harm others, is wasting my energy, so it must die from me. I don't want to react like that anymore. So Divine Mother, eliminate that detail, eliminate that defect. And I found there that I reacted with pride. I'm going to ask for death for that. Divine Mother, eliminate that defect for me. And I can, for example, see how I was imagining doing something like taking revenge on that person. I can find like emotions of anger, of fear, of whatever, and I'm going to ask for death for every detail that I'm discovering and that I'm understanding that it is a defect. That it is a defect. Sorry. So the important thing here is to observe the defect, to judge the defect, and to implore our Divine Mother to eliminate the defect. So when doing this, we are going to be see the changes within ourselves, and we can verify the process of our work on the reflective meditation in the astral world. Actually, the astral projection is very useful when we are working on this practice, because when we unfold to the astral world, there you see all your different eyes like people, and you see your eyes like animals also, because sometimes you can see like a gorilla, and there in the astral world your being is showing you your angry defect, or you can see a snake, for example, and that is your lustful defect. And you can see, for example, someone doing something, like, for example, someone depressed, and there they are showing us your depression defect. And what happens? Once we work on your defect, once you bring all the sins, lift in which this defect manifested in you, and you understand the causes, the reactions, the thoughts, the imaginations, the emotions, and you eliminate all that, you will see that when you are faced with another situation, that defect is no longer going to be manifested with the same force. It's going to be like weaker each time. And once you continue working on that defect, you are going to kill that defect from yourself. And in the astral plane, you can see the defect already dead. So your Divine Mother internally is going to guide you to in the process of meditation, in the process of elimination of a defect. So you can also practice the astral projection, the conscious astral projection, and you can ask your Divine Mother in a conscious astral projection to show you how is going on with, or how is going your work with a specific defects. That is something that you can do. And this is the practice of reflective meditation. I have 3 observations for this practice. The first one is that we must remember that we are going to judge ourselves, not others. That is important for this practice. The second observation is that it is important to put ourselves in the other person's point of view. That is important because when we do that, we get to get more out of the scene. If we try to understand what the other people was thinking, why that person reacted like he did or she did, then we are going to get more out of these defects that we are observing there. And if we see someone, for example, that did something, whatever, and I'm judging that person, I must remember, or I must try to remember when I act like that, like the person did. When did I do that? And if I put myself in the other person's shoes, I can understand that person, and that is also very important. And the third observation is to repeat this practice whenever you have the opportunity. If you do this practice, I assure you that you are going to see changes in yourself, and you are going to get out of the practice. And if you face yourself with the same situation or something similar, you are going to react with consciousness. You are going to act in a total different way, because from each meditation that we make, we get out consciousness. We free from the ego great amounts of consciousness. So this has been today's lecture. This is the practice that I wanted to show you today, and I'm going to invite you to our next lecture that will be next Sunday. And we are going to be talking next Sunday about fanaticism and mythomania. And this is going to be very interesting, because if we want to advance in our inner work, if we want to get to really know ourselves and to advance in our path to unite ourselves with our inner being, to self-realize, we need to eradicate from ourselves the fanaticism and the mythomania. So don't miss that lecture. And if when you see this video you have any question, you know that you can freely ask any question you have. So thank you for watching the video. See you next Sunday, and have a great rest of the day. Ciao, ciao.